Hello everyone! So welcome to this Python code along video where we are going to be building an interactive quiz in Python. So I'm so excited for this. Feel free to code along with me. I'm actually using a free online editor right now called repolit.com. So just go to this website, create your coding editor, choose Python as your language so you can code with me, or feel free to use whatever Python coding editor, IDE, whatever of your choice. But yeah, super excited for this, and let's just dive into this. And I kind of want to talk about our algorithm before we start writing the code for it. So let's get this set up. So as you can see, I have those like 3 single quotes and another 3 single quotes. And inside here, we're going to write our algorithm. So this is just a string, but in Python, you can do that to write like a longer comment. And we're going to be commenting about our algorithm. Okay, so this is what we're going to do is we are going to welcome users to our quiz. After that, after we welcome users, what we're going to do is store a list of questions that we will later ask the user. Okay, what we also need to keep track of is kind of have like a point system. So for example, we need to keep track if the user answers yes or no. And I think a way we can do that is through points. So let's also, what we're gonna do is keep track of points. So then after this in our algorithm, what we can do is go through the questions in the list, and what we're going to do is ask the user each question, and let's store their response. Then depending on what their response is, we're either going to increment points or not. So depending on response, we increment points. And then finally, after we have asked the user all these different questions, we know their points, we have calculated that, what we're going to do here is based off how many points they have, we're going to display a different message to the user. So depending on how many points the user has, we display a different message. Okay, so this is our game plan, this is our algorithm. It's looking good so far, and I think we can just start writing some code. So the reason why I actually wanted to step through writing the algorithm out is that this was a huge game changer for me when I was like learning how to code, because sometimes I'll try to think of the algorithm and type at the same time, and it would just be like a mess. I'm like, is my code not working because I didn't write it out right, or is my logic wrong? So I really like doing this to kind of separate that out. So yeah, but now let's actually start coding. Okay, so let's welcome users to our quiz. So what we can do is actually print, and print will display whatever is inside on the screen, and we can say welcome to the quiz. And I was thinking about this in the shower. I was like, what do I want my quiz to be about? And I decided to go with investing, because your girl has been in that space recently. And the quiz that we're going to do today is, should you invest in Dogecoin? So yeah, I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advising at all. I'm just a girl coding, so just gotta put out that disclaimer. But okay, yeah, so we have that print. So it's so good to run your code, especially when you're newer to coding and when you're a beginner, just to make sure everything is working as expected, just because one little mistake here. So we call this syntax. So if I forget to put the ending parenthesis, or I spelled print wrong, we're gonna see different errors in the console. So just keep running your code as kind of sanity checks to make sure everything is working as expected. So I press the run button at the top, and we see our question here. Welcome to the quiz, should you invest in Dogecoin? Okay, so that's good so far. So check, we have welcomed users to our quiz. Now let's store a list of questions that we will later ask the user. So I worded this in a great way because I say store a list of questions, and in Python there is a data structure called a list, and that will actually work perfectly for what we want to do here. So what I'm going to do is create a list like so. So the name of the list is called questions, and right now it's equal to the empty list. And if I run my code, we'll see there's no errors. It's still printing out the same thing, so it's working as expected. So what you can do is put items in your list. So for example, I can have question 1, and you can see this is a string that I have. So I have one item in the list, but I can put more items in. So I can just add a comma like so. Then I'm going to copy this and paste this. So now I have 2 items in the list. And syntax is so important. So like, the comma here to separate different items. You see it's square brackets. If you just change like the brackets and made them parentheses, that's a totally different data structure in Python. It's called a tuple. But yeah, data structures, it's such a fun topic, and I'm so excited that I got to introduce you to lists. If you want to find out more about lists, Google is honestly your best friend. So you could say something like list in boom Python, and then W3 Schools, one of my favorite resources, y'all know, and you can see it talks about Python lists and it describes it. So lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. So in this example, my list, you can see that is a variable, and then the multiple items are like apple, banana, cherry. So then going back to our code, you can see like, okay, this is the single variable. The multiple items are question 1, question 2. So yeah, this is our data structure. And a data structure is just like, how do you structure your data? But it's like, you choose different data structures based off what your program needs. And, some data is in pairs, other data might be like linear, or it might be in a tree structure. And, we're going so deep right now. But yeah, we're going to use a list for this. And let's actually write some real questions here. So I thought about my questions ahead of time. I'm that person. And let me just put that in. So the questions I wanted are, okay, are you a risk taker? Do you believe in the future of cryptocurrency? Crypto. Okay, we'll just do crypto. And then, oh yeah, I liked this question. Elon Musk or Stephen Graham? Yeah, so I've been watching a lot of like Stephen Graham's YouTube channel, kind of obsessed. And yeah, he's been talking about Dogecoin so much recently. And so, like Elon Musk is like always tweeting about Dogecoin. And then Stephen Graham is like, oh, just know it's a little risky. So that's why I added this question here. So yeah. So then let's make sure the syntax is correct. So we're just gonna run it, and yeah, we don't see any errors over here. If we had forgotten something, so forgotten that square bracket at the end, you'll see that we do see an error, and it says syntax error. So sometimes, you have to get used to understanding the console and stuff like that, but sometimes the console be helping you out. So yeah, let me put that back in. And yeah, okay, so let's go back to our algorithm. Welcome users to our quiz, store a list of questions that we will later ask the user. Beautiful. And now let's keep track of points. So we can keep track of points using a variable. So let's name it points. And the user will start off with 0 points because they haven't answered any questions yet or anything like that. So that was chill. So now what we're gonna do, and sorry if you can hear the sirens. So now let's go through the questions in the list. So we're going to go through the questions, and we're going to ask the user each question. We're going to go through this. So when I think about going through something or iterating, I like to think about for loops. So for loops is one of those core coding concepts that you see, with different languages, with different coding languages. Like, for example, you're going to see this in Python, Java, JavaScript, like all these languages, they have for loops. It's just the syntax, the way you type it out is different. But yeah, so let's actually create a for loop in Python. So what we're going to say is for question in questions. So I want to point out some stuff that I was doing. So for and in, so those are key words in Python. So when I say that, that means like Python knows the definition of for. They know the definition of in. And what I could do to show you that is, let's open a new tab here. And what we could do is say keywords in Python. I always like to show y'all like how you can look stuff up. Like, I know there's so many different tutorials on YouTube, but don't feel afraid to like, okay, one of the YouTube instructors, I'm not an instructor, one of the YouTubers says something, like feel free to like look it up and like explore it on your own as well. So for example, you see for to create a for loop. And you can actually click on that and find more information about for loops. So the one we're doing is more similar to this syntax, but there's more than one way to create a for loop in Python. And just think about like the English language. Like I could say, hey, I could say howdy, I could say hello. Like there's different ways to say that, and there's different ways to create a for loop. So let's go back to the code, and I want to point out some other stuff as well. So this is actually a variable that we have here. So like points was a variable, questions, variable, and this question is a variable as well. So we're saying for a question in questions, we want to do something. So to further explain this, let's actually just print out question, and let's run our code. So you can see this is printed out on the screen. So welcome to the quiz. And then everything that's in our questions list is printed out on the screen. So you can see three things, 1, 2, 3, and then you also see 1, 2, 3. So just to check your understanding, if we had question 4 here, we don't have to change anything about our for loop. It will still print out question 4 just because it's in our questions list. And that's one of the great things about for loops. So let me run the code again, and you can see question 4 is printed out. But yeah, we have just created a for loop. Like this is actually like kind of cool. So we have just done that. And yeah, so for question in questions, we are printing out a question. So instead of printing out the question, let's change this up a little bit. And instead we want to ask the user the question instead of just printing it out. So what we can do is actually use a function called input. And I talked about this in my other code along video, and I'll have it like, somewhere up there or in the description box. So if you want to learn more about input, check out that video. Or you can also, how we've been looking stuff up, input Python, and you'll find W3 schools. You can find more information about it. But yeah, so input the question. So let's see what's going on. So we run our code, and you can see how it's different now. Before, when we printed it printed out all the questions that we had. But input actually waits, or it prompts the user for a response. So you can actually go over to this area, to the console, and you can type something. So for example, I can type yes. And then, I could keep answering these, questions. Let's say yes, yes. And then this one, let's say I said, I love Stefan's YouTube channel, so I'm going to go with Stefan on this one. But you can see, and then we have that question 4 there, and then that's it, that's our program. So what I'm going to do now is actually clean this up and take out this question 4 here. And then also something else I want to do is notice how this yes is like right next to this question mark. I feel like that's not too readable. So let's actually do some concatenation. But that's just fancy for saying like, okay, we want to combine whatever the question is with an empty space. So you can see when I run the code again, there's room like between the question and my answer. So that's something that we did. So now what I want to do though is we're like asking the user for input, but we're not really doing anything with it. So I think one of the first things we can do is store it. So let's store it in, we can call this response. So now we have it, and let's see what's going on. So let's actually print out response. Y'all, like printing stuff out and running your code is just like so important. So that's why I'm really trying to like stress that out now, because what I used to do is write a whole bunch of code and then run it, and I was just confused. I was just like, I don't even know where to start. But when you like, you know, do something, check if it works, do something, check if it works, it just, oh, it's so much more helpful and can save you a lot of time. So, okay. So now I'm answering, are you a risk taker? Yes. So what I'm expecting in my head to see is that since I'm printing out response, it's going to display yes right under. So let's see if it does that. And then it does. Okay, let's type something else. Let's say I typed no. Okay, it's understanding, you know, it's printing that out. And then let's say I'm a Stefan fan. And then it prints out Stefan. Okay, cool, this is good. So what I want to do is actually over here, to make this question easier for us later on, I just want to put like a number here. So the user knows if you choose Elon Musk, just type in 1, or if you choose Stefan Graham, type in 2. So I'm just going to add that there. So just changing up the question a little bit. And then now let's go back to our algorithm. And then we say, depending on response, we increment points. So what we could do here is let's take off this print statement, and we can say something like, if response is equal to yes, what we're going to do is our points are going to be equal to whatever is in points plus 1. So, and then let's also, you already know, let's print out points to see what's going on. So we're saying, okay, if the user answers yes to any of these questions, you know, points is going to increment by 1, so it's going to go up, and then we're also printing out points to see what that value is. Okay, so let's go through our code. So are you a risk taker? Yes. Do you believe in the future of crypto? Yes. Elon Musk or Stefan Graham? Ooh, 2. Oh, so, okay, that is working as expected because my points wouldn't increment if I chose Stefan Graham. However, looking back at the code, we only say if response equals yes, we increment points. But also, if the user types in 1, we also want to increment points. So we're going to modify this if statement that we have. So what we're going to do is say if our response equals yes, or our response is equal to 1, what we're going to do is increment points. So that's what we're going to do. However, this is going to cause a bug. And if you watch the first Python code along video, you'll know why. But if you haven't, that's okay. I can briefly talk about it. So are you a risk taker? Yes. Yes. But then when we type 1, we're going to expect it to go into this if statement, and we're going to expect it to print out points, but it ain't going to do that. So when we do that, you see nothing happens. And that's because input, what it does is even though I typed in a number, it converts it into a string. So what we'll have to do, and there's multiple ways to fix this, but the easiest way that I just thought of is just convert that to a string. So let's do yes, yes, and then 1, and then nice. So 3 is printed out. So this is working as we expect. So what we can do now is we can take off this print, And there's multiple ways that we can fix this code, and I think I'm going to save that for later. But you can start thinking about that in your head, like what are some possible problems that might happen with this. But okay, so we did that. Depending on response, we increment points. So we have done a lot of our algorithm. And now, depending on how many points the user has, we display a different message. So now it's the part of the quiz where they kind of like let you know, what animal you are or what character you are. This is like, us telling the user the results. So what we can do is we have different situations we can take account for. So for example, what happened, the user has 0 points, 1 point, 2 points. Like we need to take care of those different situations. So we can do if statements for this, but there's also something else. I guess as a challenge, look up a switch statement and see if you can, increment, or if you can like create what I was just talking about using a switch. But we're going to use if statements. And if you think I'm talking nonsense, I'm sorry. Let me just go to the code. But anyway, so if points is equal to 0, we're going to do something. We can actually copy this. So if points is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, we're going to do something. So if it's equal to 0, remember this is the quiz. Should you invest in Dogecoin? Print, nah, it ain't for you, homie, because, they didn't get any points. However, if they get 1 point, let's put, maybe do some research. Okay? Okay, so if they get 2 points, print, hey, get you some stocks, sis. I said sticks. And then finally, if they get 3 points, we print out to the moon. Okay, nice. So let's run our code and see if we made any mistakes. Okay, are you a risk taker? Yes. Do you believe in the future of crypto? Yes. Elon Musk or Stephen Graham? So I'm going to choose Stephen Graham. Hey, get you some stocks, sis. So this is working as expected. So what I want to do is talk about how we can improve this. So one way, I think maybe some of y'all might have caught on to this, is if we run our code, what happened, I typed in capital Y, So I'm like, are you a risk taker? Yes. Yes. And then I even do Elon Musk, right? It's going to be, maybe do some research, okay? And then you might be thinking like, wait, I did yes, 1, I should have 3 points. However, if I actually printed out points, you would see how many points I've had. So let's do that. So let's run our code again. So then what we're going to do is yes, 1. So then you might be like, what? You only have 1 point. This is me printing out points. And that's because I did a capital Y and not a lowercase y. So then you might be thinking, okay, how can we fix this? Because the user should be able to type in, a capital Y or a lowercase y, and it should still work. Okay, so one way you think we might be able to solve this is we could let the user know, like, okay, like you can only type in lowercase, like, okay? But that might not be the best user experience. So something else you might think of is, okay, what if we like lowercase whatever input the user gives us? And then you might be thinking, how do I do that? So y'all, Google. So you could say something like lowercase Python. Okay, that appeared. Let's see what happens. And then we say, oh, there's something called lower. So you can click on that to learn more about lower, and we can see what it does. So it seems like returns the lowercase string from the given string. Y'all, even though it's taking forever to load, we don't even have to look at that. We can go try it out. but I've used lower before, and I believe you just do it like that, and it will lowercase it. So then if I type in capital Y for yes, lowercase y, 1, you see, I actually got my 3 points. So that is good. And then finally, something else I want to talk about, but I think I'll actually save it for the next video because I think this video is going to be so long, and I was trying to have like cute little short Python videos, but you know, your girl's talking too much. So something else we can do is we have all these like if statements, but it's like if points is equal to 0, then points cannot be equal to 1 because it's equal to 0. So maybe this doesn't have to be if statements. Maybe it could be like, okay, if it's equal to 0, however, or else if it's equal to 1, you know, just because our program can be faster if it doesn't have to check each if, especially if we know it can't even reach another if it's already another value. 8. So that's something we can change in the future, is maybe use something besides an if. And then also as well, like what happened if the user is typing in nonsense, you know, like we expect the user to type in yes or no, but maybe they're typing in like apple, you know. If the user types in something besides yes, no, 1, 2, we can say, oh, try again, you know, try typing in this, you know, so we can help the user out and create a better user experience. But yeah, let's try this quiz one more time before we head on out. So are you a risk taker? Yes. Do you believe in the future of crypto? Yes. Elon Musk or Stephen Graham? You know I love Stephen Graham, but I'm just going to do Elon Musk. To the moon. Okay, this was fun. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed making this interactive quiz, and I'll see you in the next Python code along. Bye.